If you're in a noisy place, save the video for later when you're somewhere you can put on headphones and relax. There's nothing on the screen to watch, just listen and enjoy. The story you're about to hear is true. Now, let's begin. Susan and I sat in the cafeteria of Orly Airport in Paris, waiting for the plane that would take me back to my country after an absence of 6 years. Up until the last quarter of an hour, Susan did not give up trying to persuade me to stay in France. She kept repeating the same arguments that I had heard for months since I informed her of my final decision to return home and work there. I come from an Arab family that practices Christianity and follows the Catholic doctrine. Half of the family lives in Paris, so the doors were open for me to study in this country. My studies were easy and accessible, especially since I was proficient in French even before coming to Paris. I studied film directing and excelled in my studies. Now, after graduating, I am returning to my country and my city. Susan is also from an Arab family, but her entire family had immigrated and lives in France. We became close friends during the last 2 years of my studies, and we could have married with the blessing of both families if it weren't for my insistence on returning home and her insistence on staying in France. To end our last discussion on the subject at the airport, I said to her, "Susan, I love my country, my city. I love its streets and corners. This is not empty romanticism, it is a genuine feeling. I know by heart the phrases engraved on the walls of the old houses in my neighborhood. I adore them, I long for them, that is first. Secondly, I want to be a distinguished director. I have many projects and plans in mind, and my ambition is great. In France, I would remain a stranger, working like any refugee there, receiving some crumbs from them. No, I don't want that. In my country, I have rights, and no one can patronize me. With a little effort, I can prove myself, aside from the fact that my country needs me and those like me. Therefore, my decision to return is final, and any attempt to persuade me otherwise is futile." A silence fell for a few minutes, and we heard the boarding announcement. It was time to board the plane. We stood up, drank the remaining beer in our glasses in one gulp, and I looked at her, moved. I noticed a tear starting to form in her eyes. She threw herself into my arms, and I kissed her quickly. "I can't stand such a situation," I said. "I wish you happiness. And I wish the same for you. Take care of yourself." And then I boarded the plane. These diaries were mostly written in the desert prison, and the word written in the previous sentence is not entirely accurate. In the desert prison, there are no pens or papers for writing. In this massive prison, which contains 7 courtyards in addition to Courtyard 0, 37 dormitories, many new unnumbered dormitories, rooms, and French-style cells, cellule in the 5th courtyard, and which at one point held more than 10,000 prisoners, who had the highest percentage of university degree holders in the country. The prisoners, some of whom had spent more than 20 years there, never saw a single piece of paper or pen. Mental writing is a method developed by the Islamists. One of them memorized more than 10,000 names in his mind, the prisoners who entered the desert prison, with their family names, their cities or villages, the date of their arrest, their sentences, and their fate. When I decided to write these diaries, I had managed, through practice, to turn my mind into a recording tape on which I recorded everything I saw and some of what I heard. Now I am emptying some of what this tape contained. Am I the same person I was 13 years ago? Yes and no. A small yes and a big no. Yes, because I am now emptying and genuinely writing down some of these diaries. And no, because I cannot write and say everything. This requires a process of confession, and confession requires the right objective conditions and the other party. I stood on the plane steps for a moment, taking in the airport buildings. I looked at the distant lights, the lights of my city. It was a wonderful moment. I got off the plane, with my suitcase and passport in hand, feeling a sense of relief, a feeling of returning to my home and its familiar corners after a long absence. The officer asked me to wait. He read my passport, referred to some papers he had, and then asked me to wait again, so I waited. The security officers took my passport and, with exaggerated politeness, asked me to accompany them, me and my suitcase, which I did not see again, and a ride in the security car along the airport's long road, watching the lights on either side of the road, watching the lights of my city getting closer. I turned to the security officer sitting next to me and asked, "Is everything okay? Why these procedures?" He crossed his index finger over his lips, not uttering a word, and asked me to remain silent. So I did. A journey from the airport to that small building in the middle of the capital, a journey in space. And from that moment on, 13 years passed, a journey in time. I later learned that someone, a fellow student from Paris, had written a report submitted to the security agency he was affiliated with. This report claimed that I had made statements hostile to the current regime and uttered offensive remarks about the head of state, an act considered one of the gravest crimes, equivalent to national treason, if not more severe. This happened 3 years before my return from Paris. That report led me to this building in the middle of the capital close to my home, a building I knew well because I had often passed by it. I was always intrigued by the mystery surrounding it and the heavy security around it. The security guards escorting me tightened their grip on my arms as we entered the door into the long hallway. At the end of the hallway stood a young man who shouted when he saw us, "Hello, Musa. So, what's it going to be, green or red? It's all the same." From one hallway to another, through an internal staircase, an upper hallway, a room to the right, knock on the door, a voice from inside, "Come in." My escort opened the door quietly, then stomped his feet on the ground forcefully. Respectfully, "Sir, this is the person we brought from the airport, sir." A distinctive smell reached my nose, one found only in the offices of security officers. It was a blend of various perfumes, fine cigarettes, human sweat, and foot odor, all mixed with the scent of human suffering and torture, the smell of cruelty. As soon as the smell reaches one's nose, a sense of awe and fear sets in, and I felt both, despite believing there was some misunderstanding behind all of this. A gigantic man with white hair and a red face turned to us. At his feet, I noticed a young man crouched, blindfolded. The giant said, "Take him to Abu Ramzi." My escorts pulled me, this time with evident violence, through hallways and stairs. How small the building seemed from the outside, yet how vast it was on the inside. As we walked, I could hear human screams and pleas for help. The further we went, the louder and clearer these sounds became. We descended, I believe, to the basement. One of my escorts opened the door, and I saw the source of the screams and pleas. A loud scream of pain surprised me, following a blow from a cable to the feet of the person lying on the ground, trapped in an external car tire, his legs raised in the air. I felt something between my thighs shudder, while I was stunned by the sight of the black cable rising and then falling on the feet of the young man trapped in the black car tire, scattering droplets of blood and bits of human flesh. A loud voice froze me in place. I unwillingly turned to its source. In the corner of the room stood a man with a flushed face, red and foaming at the corners of his mouth. Blindfold him, one of my escorts jumped forward and back, and suddenly something was placed over my eyes and tied with the elastic behind my head. I could no longer see anything. Stand him against the wall. A shove to my back, a slap on my neck, and my hands were pulled behind me. I walked reluctantly, my head bumping into the wall. I stood. Raise your hands, you dog. I raised them. Lift your right leg and stand on your left leg. I lifted my leg and stood. In the background, what had been happening continued. I heard the sound of the cable striking feet, the young man's pained cries, the labored breathing of the torturer. I could almost hear the pieces of flesh I saw flying moments ago. Sound sounds to the blind. Sound is king. The comfortable chair at Ollie Airport, Susan, refreshments, beer, the plush seat on the plane, the hostess overflowing with grace and beauty, juice tea. My left leg, supporting my entire body, grew tired. If I switch the right with the left, will the flushed-faced man notice? And if he notices, what will he do? My left leg goes numb. I can't bear it any longer. I take the risk, I switch. Nothing happened. No one noticed. I feel victorious after many years in prison. In the future, I will discover that in the eternal struggle between prisoner and jailer, all the prisoner's victories will be of this kind. Time drags on heavy, a sense of disbelief overwhelms me. What is happening? And why am I here? Thousands of questions. I try to lean my hand on the wall, touching it with my fingertips. Suddenly, the young man trapped in the black external car tire shouts, "Please, sir, please, for God's sake. I can't take it anymore. I will tell you everything." Calmly and with the tone of a victor, the flushed-faced man says, "Enough, Ibrahim, that's enough. Let him out of the tire and take him to the major." I hear him talking on the phone with the major and wonder, is it my turn now? Indeed, I heard the phone receiver being placed back. The flushed-faced man shouted, "Ayoub, Ayoub?" "Yes, sir." "Come see this customer." I could feel Ayoub behind me. "Put him in the tire, hurry up." I felt more than 5 men grab me and throw me to the ground. To this day, 14 years after that moment, I still cannot understand or imagine how Ayoub managed to shove me into that car tire so that my legs were sticking up in the air, unable to break free no matter how hard I tried, or how he removed my shoes and socks. So the cable or the cane, the cane, the cane. A searing iron scorched the soles of my feet, and I screamed. Before the scream had finished, the cane struck again. The beating continued, the screams continued. Yet, I heard the voice of the flushed-faced man, "Ayoub, when he's done, call me." I didn't know why they were beating me or what they wanted from me. I dared to shout, "What do you want from me?" "Eat shit and shut up." That was Ayoub's response, a face I never saw. I started counting the blows while I screamed in pain. Much later, the experience once told me that counting the blows is the first sign of weakness and that it indicates the fighter or activist will break before the interrogator. At the time, I thought to myself, but I'm neither a fighter nor an activist. They told me that in such situations, it's best to have great mental focus, to concentrate on something you love, and try to forget about your feet. At the count of 40, I lost track, and I began to lose sensation in my body. My screams softened, and I felt a sense of imbalance and dizziness. Despite the blindfold, clouds began to form before my eyes. Was I losing consciousness? Clouds, dizziness, Ollie Airport, juice beer, the plane, and the kind hostess. A vague feeling that everything had stopped. I regained awareness of the situation, yes. Even the beating had stopped. Numbness, minutes that might have been long, might have been short, I don't know. I awoke. The voice of the flush-faced man again. So, Ayoub, did he wake up or not? He's awake, sir, but he pissed himself. Blind him. Damn it. It looks like this guy is really scared. I felt a jab in my side and the voice of the interrogator. What? You're not a man. Shame on you for pissing yourself. What's your name? I told him my name. Listen, you dog. Look, we haven't even started with you yet, and you end up like this. So far, it's all just a joke, and we haven't begun for real. It's better for you to save yourself and us from the trouble from the start. You're going to talk, I mean? You're going to talk. Here, everyone talks and you'll tell us everything. From A to Z. Got it. Ready to talk. Sir, I'll tell you whatever you want. Just tell me what I should say. Okay. Let's see, what are your family's names? I started listing my family members' names, starting with my father and mother, but he interrupted me, yelling furiously, "You donkey! Are you messing with me? I want your family's names. Damn you and your family, tell me your organization's names." What organization? Sir, what organization? Ayoub, it seems this goat is playing dumb. He's going to make us and himself suffer. Sir, by the Lord's life, by the Lord's life, I don't know what you're asking me about. What organization are you talking about? I heard footsteps coming closer, and his breath brushed against my face. In a very calm voice, he said, "The organization of bastards like you, the Muslim Brotherhood. Don't you recognize your organization?" I noticed his breath smelled awful. I didn't know whether I should be happy that the misunderstanding was becoming clear, or curse my bad luck that led me into this mess, or curse the coincidence that brought me straight to Abu Ramsat. If they had searched me and taken my belongings as they do with everyone else, someone might have realized who I was and what my crime was. But to enter the intelligence branch at a time when hundreds of Muslim Brotherhood detainees were arriving every day, to be lumped in with them, and for the officers and staff to work around the clock in such chaos, it was impossible to clear up this misunderstanding. On top of all this, my name doesn't suggest that I'm not Muslim. But despite all that, I shouted, "But sir, I'm Christian, I'm Christian." What? You're saying you're Christian? Damn it, why didn't you say so? Why are you here then? You must have done something big. Christian. You didn't ask me. Sir, and not only am I Christian, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. To this day, I still can't explain why I declared my atheism to the interrogator. What was the point? I don't know. And an atheist, too? He asked, with a hint of contemplation in his voice. Yes, sir, yes. I swear to God, check my passport. The flushed man fell silent for a moment that felt incredibly long to me. I heard his footsteps moving away, and in a clear voice, he said, "He says he's an atheist. But we're an Islamic state. Ayoub, keep going." And Ayoub's cane resumed its work. From the very first moment of my encounter with these people, I used the phrase "my brother" when answering a question. But Ayoub slapped me, saying, "You dog, am I your brother? Your brother in the whorehouse." I caught on quickly and addressed him as teacher, but got another slap. Teacher, a teacher in your family's house between your mother's thighs. From that moment on, they taught me to say, "Sir." This word is not used here as it is between to polite men. Here, it is spoken carrying all the meanings of humiliation and servitude. This is where we pause, but don't worry. This is just the beginning. There's more to come. Stay tuned as we continue the adventure in the next chapter.